What happens when television's most outspoken host meets royalty with a reputation for controversy? You won't believe what unfolds when Prince Harry steps into the lion's den that is The View, only to face Joy Behar's most ruthless interrogation yet. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a complete meltdown that had producers scrambling and viewers glued to their screens in absolute shock. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds when royal protocol collides with daytime television's most unfiltered panel. The tension was palpable from the moment Prince Harry walked onto the View set last night. What was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance for his latest charitable initiative quickly transformed into one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The writing was on the wall from the very beginning. Joy Behar's opening remarks weren't the usual warm welcome reserved for high-profile guests. Well, Joy began with that trademark smirk that regular viewers know signals trouble ahead. Look who's gracing us with his presence. The prince who gave up his crown but kept all the complaints. The audience shifted uncomfortably as Harry's jaw visibly tightened, his media-trained smile wavering for just a fraction of a second. Whoopi Goldberg, sitting at the head of the table, attempted to steer the conversation towards safer waters. "Harry, thanks for being here. Let's talk about your new foundation work." But Joy wasn't having any of it. She leaned forward, her voice cutting through Whoopi's diplomatic tone like a knife through butter. "Hold on, Whoopi. I think our viewers deserve some real talk here. Harry, you've spent years now criticizing the institution that made you who you are, profiting off family drama while your grandmother was on her deathbed. How do you sleep at night?" The studio fell dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze as Harry's composure began to crack. "I'm sorry, Joy, but that's completely unfair and factually incorrect. My grandmother and I had a wonderful relationship until the very end, and everything I've done has been to protect my family and serve causes greater than myself." Sarah Haynes jumped in, her usually gentle demeanor replaced by something sharper. "But Harry, you can't deny that you've made millions talking about private family conversations. You've aired dirty laundry on global platforms while simultaneously demanding privacy. Don't you see the contradiction there?" The prince's media training was clearly being tested. "Sarah, with respect, you're oversimplifying complex situations. When you're being attacked by the British press daily, when your wife is being subjected to racist coverage, when your own family won't defend you, sometimes you have to speak your truth." That's when Sunny Hostin struck with surgical precision. "Your truth, Harry? Or your version of events designed to maximize book sales and Netflix deals? Because let's be honest here, you've turned family dysfunction into a multi-million-dollar brand. That's not speaking truth to power. That's monetizing personal grievances." Harry's face flushed red. "I can't believe I'm hearing this. You're supposed to be journalists, not tabloid attack dogs. I came here to discuss important charitable work, not to be ambushed by people who clearly haven't done their homework." Joy pounced on his defensive response like a predator sensing weakness. "Oh, we've done our homework all right. We know about the contradictions, the selective memory, the convenient timing of your revelations. What we want to know is why you think American audiences should care about your royal family drama when we've got real problems in this country." The atmosphere in the studio had shifted completely. What started as uncomfortable tension had escalated into open hostility. Alyssa Farah Griffin, usually the most diplomatic of the panel, decided to pile on. "Harry, you talk about service, but you abandoned your military ceremonial roles, stepped back from hundreds of patronages that depended on royal support, and moved across the world. How is that service?" "I served 2 tours in Afghanistan," Harry shot back, his voice rising. "I've dedicated my life to veterans' causes, mental health advocacy, and environmental protection. Just because I refuse to be trapped in a system that was destroying my family doesn't mean I've abandoned service." Joy wasn't backing down. "But you are trapped, aren't you? Trapped in this endless cycle of grievance and victimhood. You left the royal family to find freedom, but all you've done is complain about them publicly for years. When does it end, Harry? When do you actually move on?" The cameras captured every micro-expression as Harry's carefully maintained composure began to crumble. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his breathing became more labored, and that famous Spencer temper that he inherited from his mother started to surface. You know what, Joy? You sit here in your comfortable studio, surrounded by yes people, making judgments about situations you couldn't possibly understand. You've never had your every move scrutinized, your wife attacked, your children threatened. You've never had to choose between family loyalty and protecting the people you love most. Whoopi tried once more to defuse the situation. Let's take a breath here, everyone. Harry, we understand you've been through difficult. No, Whoopi. Joy interrupted, clearly sensing blood in the water. I want to hear Harry explain why he thinks his problems are more important than everyone else's. We all have family drama. We all face difficult choices. The difference is most of us don't write tell-all books about it and then act surprised when people call us out. The studio audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Harry's media handlers in the wings were frantically trying to signal for a commercial break, but the confrontation had taken on a life of its own. This is exactly the problem, Harry said, his voice trembling with barely controlled anger. You reduce everything to sound bites and gotcha moments. You don't want to understand, you just want to attack. This is why the media is so toxic, why people like my mother couldn't survive it. The mention of Princess Diana sent a chill through the studio. Joy's expression hardened further. Don't you dare use your mother's memory as a shield for your own choices. Diana faced real persecution, real challenges. She didn't have the luxury of Netflix deals and Spotify contracts to cushion her landing. That was the moment everything changed. Harry's eyes flashed with something dangerous, his entire demeanor shifting from defensive to aggressive. How dare you? He whispered, but his words carried the weight of thunder. How dare you use my mother's name like that? The panel exchanged glances, realizing they might have pushed too far, but Joy wasn't finished. She leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smile, clearly pleased at having gotten such a reaction. I'm not using anything, Harry. I'm just pointing out the obvious differences between real struggle and manufactured victimhood. The tension in the room was now suffocating. Harry was breathing heavily, his face flushed, his hands shaking slightly. The other panelists suddenly seemed less sure of themselves, perhaps realizing they were witnessing someone approaching a complete breakdown on live television. But before anyone could attempt to salvage the situation, Harry stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I will not sit here and listen to this anymore, he said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge that made everyone in the studio freeze. The cameras continued rolling as Harry's composure finally, completely, spectacularly shattered, setting the stage for what would become one of the most talked-about television moments of the year. What happened next would leave the entire studio in stunned silence and create a media firestorm that would dominate headlines for weeks. Harry's breaking point had been reached, and there was no going back from what was about to unfold. You want to talk about manufactured victimhood? Harry's voice cut through the studio like a blade, no longer the polished royal speaking in measured tones. Let me tell you about manufactured victimhood, Joy. It's sitting in a studio, making millions off other people's pain, pretending to be some moral authority while you've never faced a single real challenge in your privileged little bubble. The studio audience gasped audibly. Joy's mouth fell open, clearly not expecting such a direct counterattack. But Harry was just getting started, years of pent-up frustration pouring out like a dam bursting. You talk about my mother like you knew her, like you understand what she went through. You have no idea what it's like to watch your mother being hunted by photographers, to see her crying alone because the press wouldn't leave her alone, to find out she's dead because those same people were chasing her through a tunnel in Paris. Whoopi tried desperately to regain control. Harry, I think we need to. No, Whoopi. Harry's voice boomed across the studio. I'm done being polite. I'm done sitting here while these people attack my family, my wife, my choices. You want the real Harry? Here he is. Sarah Haynes looked visibly uncomfortable now, her earlier confidence evaporating. Harry, we're not attacking your family. We're asking legitimate questions about your public statements and actions. Harry turned on her with laser focus. Legitimate questions? Sarah, you accused me of monetizing family dysfunction. Do you have any idea what it's like to have your father choose his new wife over his own sons? To have your brother, who you grew up protecting, turn his back on you when you need him most? To watch your wife contemplate suicide because of the treatment she received from your family and the press. The mention of Meghan's mental health struggles sent a chill through the studio. The panelists exchanged uncomfortable glances, perhaps realizing they had ventured into territory far more serious than typical daytime television drama. But Joy wasn't backing down. If anything, Harry's emotional outburst seemed to energize her. "Oh, so now we're supposed to feel sorry for you because you have family problems?" "Harry, everyone has family drama. The difference is most people don't air it on Oprah and then act shocked when people have opinions about it." Family drama. Harry's voice reached a pitch that made everyone in the studio flinch. "You call systematic racism family drama? You call death threats against my children family drama? You call watching your wife lose a baby while being attacked by tabloids family drama?" Sonny Hostin, who had been quietly observing the explosion, decided to jump back in. "Harry, you're being deliberately dramatic. No one is minimizing serious issues, but you can't deny that you've used these experiences to build a media empire. That's what people have a problem with." Harry whirled around to face her, his eyes blazing. "A media empire? Sonny, I gave up everything. I walked away from $1 billion institution, from titles, from privilege, from a life of comfort, to protect my family. And what did I get in return? Exile, abandonment. And now I have to sit here while people like you question my motives." Alyssa Farah Griffin, sensing an opportunity to pile on while Harry was emotional, made a critical error in judgment. "But Harry, you didn't just walk away quietly. You made sure everyone knew exactly why you were leaving, in the most public way possible. You burned bridges that could never be rebuilt." "Burned bridges?" Harry's laugh was bitter and hollow. "Alyssa, those bridges were already on fire. My family threw me under the bus the moment I married a woman they couldn't control. They leaked stories about me, about Meghan, about our children. They let the press destroy us while they sat in their palaces doing nothing." Joy leaned forward, sensing weakness. "So it's everyone else's fault? Your family, the press, the institution, everyone except you and Meghan. Is that really what you believe?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Harry stood there, chest heaving, sweat beading on his forehead despite the studio's air conditioning. The cameras captured every detail of his emotional breakdown, and millions of viewers watched as a prince completely lost his composure on live television. "You know what I believe, Joy?" Harry's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow it was more menacing than his shouting. "I believe you're exactly what's wrong with this industry. You sit here pretending to care about important issues, but really you just want to tear people down for entertainment. You're no different from the tabloid journalists who killed my mother." The comparison hit like a nuclear bomb. Joy's face went white, and for the first time in the interview, she seemed genuinely shaken. But her recovery was swift and brutal. "How dare you compare me to the paparazzi? I'm a legitimate journalist asking legitimate questions. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't have put yourself in the public eye." Legitimate journalist. Harry's voice rose again, his anger reaching new heights. "You're a talk show host who makes money gossiping about celebrities. Don't flatter yourself, Joy. You're entertainment, not journalism." The insult struck home. Joy's face flushed red, and her famous temper finally erupted. "Listen here, you entitled little prince. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I've interviewed presidents, covered wars, broken real news. Don't you dare diminish my career because you can't handle tough questions." "Tough questions?" Harry laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call character assassination? Because that's all this has been from the moment I walked in here. You didn't invite me to discuss my charity work. You invited me here to ambush me, to tear me down for ratings." Whoopi made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Okay, everyone, let's just take a step back. This conversation has gone off the rails, and I think we all need to—" "No, Whoopi." Harry cut her off again, his control completely gone. "I'm tired of taking steps back. I'm tired of being polite while people attack my family. I'm tired of pretending that this kind of treatment is normal or acceptable." Sarah Haynes, looking increasingly uncomfortable, tried a different approach. "Harry, no one is attacking your family. We're simply asking you to account for your public statements and actions. That's what happens when you choose to live in the public eye." "Account for my actions?" Harry's voice cracked with emotion. "What actions, Sarah? Protecting my wife from racism? Refusing to let my children be used as props? Choosing love over duty? Those are the actions you want me to account." 4. The studio was now completely silent except for Harry's heavy breathing and the barely audible hum of the cameras. The audience sat frozen, afraid to move or make a sound that might interrupt the most explosive television moment they'd ever witnessed. Joy, however, wasn't finished. Despite the clear signs that Harry was having a complete breakdown, she pressed on with ruthless determination. You keep talking about protecting your family, Harry, but what about the family you left behind? What about your father, who's battling cancer? What about your brother, who had to take on your responsibilities? What about the charities that lost their royal patron when you decided to run away to California? The mention of his father's illness and his abandoned responsibilities seemed to hit Harry like a physical blow. His face contorted with pain and rage, and for a moment, it looked like he might actually physically lash out. "Don't you dare," he whispered, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Don't you dare talk about my father or my brother. You have no idea what's been happening behind closed doors. You have no idea what I've been dealing with." But Joy smelled blood in the water and refused to let up. "Then tell us, Harry. Stop hiding behind vague accusations and tell us exactly what happened. What did your family do that was so terrible it justified you burning down centuries of tradition?" The challenge hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Harry stood there, shaking with rage, his face flushed, his breathing labored. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every second of his complete emotional collapse. And then, just when it seemed like he might actually reveal the secrets he'd been guarding, something inside him snapped in a completely different direction. Instead of breaking down further or spilling royal secrets, Harry's expression suddenly changed. The rage was still there, but it was now focused into something cold and calculated. When he spoke again, his voice was deadly quiet, more terrifying than all his previous shouting. "You know what, Joy? You want to know what my family did? You want the real story?" Harry's smile was chilling. "They did exactly what you're doing right now. They sat around a table, just like this one, and they decided that tearing me down was more important than the truth. They chose protecting their precious institution over protecting their own flesh and blood." The studio fell into an eerie silence. Even Joy seemed taken aback by the sudden shift in Harry's demeanor. But he wasn't finished. "But here's the difference between them and you," Harry continued, his voice gaining strength. "They're my family. They're supposed to love me, support me, protect me. You're just a talk show host desperate for ratings, willing to destroy anyone who sits in that chair to get them." Joy tried to interject, but Harry cut her off with a gesture that was pure royal authority. "No, you've had your turn. Now it's mine." Harry turned to address the entire panel, his posture straightening, suddenly every inch the prince he was born to be. "You invited me here under false pretenses. You told my people this would be about my charitable work, about the causes I care about. Instead, you've spent 30 minutes trying to humiliate me on national television." Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably. "Harry, that wasn't our intention, wasn't it?" Harry's gaze fixed on her with laser precision. "Sarah, you came prepared with talking points designed to make me look hypocritical. Sonny, you had statistics ready to undermine my credibility. Alyssa, you had quotes prepared to make me seem ungrateful. And Joy," he turned to the host with undisguised contempt, "you had your mind made up about me before I even walked through that door." Whoopi, still trying to maintain some semblance of control, attempted to defend her colleagues. "Harry, these are legitimate questions that people have been asking. People." Harry's laugh was bitter. "Or tabloid journalists looking for ammunition. Because that's what this feels like, Whoopi. It feels like I'm being interrogated by the same people who made my mother's life hell." The mention of Diana again sent a chill through the studio, but this time Harry's invocation of her memory felt different, more powerful, more purposeful. "My mother sat through interviews like this," Harry continued, his voice growing stronger. With each word, she tried to tell her truth, tried to explain her side, and what happened? They twisted her words, took her pain, and turned it into entertainment. And now you're trying to do the same thing to me." Joy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally found her voice again. "Harry, you're being overly dramatic. This is how interviews work. If you can't handle questions about your public statements, handle questions." Harry's voice rose again, but this time it was controlled anger, not the explosive rage from before. "Joy, I've been handling questions about my life since I was 12 years old, and my mother died. I've been answering questions about my military service, my relationships, my family, my choices for decades. What I won't handle is being ambushed by people who have already decided I'm guilty. The power dynamic in the studio had completely shifted. Harry was no longer the defensive, emotional guest being torn apart by experienced hosts. He had found his footing and was fighting back with devastating effectiveness. You want to talk about accountability? Harry continued, addressing the entire panel. Let's talk about yours. Joy, when's the last time you admitted you were wrong about something? When's the last time any of you apologized for getting a story wrong, for hurting someone unnecessarily? The silence that followed was deafening. Harry pressed his advantage. You sit here every day, judging people, tearing them apart, ruining reputations, and you never face any consequences. You hide behind the shield of journalism and asking tough questions, but really you're just bullies with a platform. Sonny Hostin tried to push back. Harry, that's not fair. We hold public figures accountable. Accountable. Harry cut her off. Sonny, you don't hold people accountable. You destroy them for sport. There's a difference between journalism and what you do here. Alyssa Farah Griffin, looking increasingly desperate, made one last attempt to justify the interview's direction. Harry, if you didn't want to face scrutiny, why did you agree to come on the show? Harry's response was swift and brutal. Alyssa, I came here because I was told you wanted to discuss my foundation's work with veterans. Instead, I walked into an ambush designed to humiliate me and generate headlines. If this is what passes for journalism in America, no wonder trust in media is at an all-time low. The cameras captured every moment as Harry began to gather himself, straightening his jacket, running a hand through his hair. The emotional breakdown was over, replaced by something far more dangerous. A man who had found his power again. You know what the real tragedy is here? Harry asked, his voice now completely calm. I came here genuinely wanting to talk about important issues. Mental health, veterans support, climate change, things that actually matter. But you were more interested in palace gossip and family drama. Joy, perhaps sensing that she was losing control of her own show, made one final attempt to regain the upper hand. Harry, you're the one who made your family drama public. You can't put it out there and then complain when people ask about it. Harry's smile was cold and final. And there it is, the real Joy Behar. You don't care about truth, about healing, about moving forward. You just want to keep picking at old wounds because it makes good television. He stood up slowly, deliberately, every movement calculated for maximum impact. Well, congratulations, Joy. You got your moment. You got your viral clip. You got your headlines. But you also showed America exactly who you really are. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Harry looked around at each of the panelists, his gaze lingering on Joy last. You asked me earlier how I sleep at night, Harry said, his voice carrying across the silent studio. I sleep just fine, Joy, because I know I've tried to use my platform to help people, to make a difference, to serve something bigger than myself. Can you say the same? Without waiting for an answer, Harry began to remove his microphone. The simple action seemed to break the spell that had held the studio in thrall. Harry, wait. Whoopi called out, finally finding her voice. Don't leave like this. Let's find a way to what? Harry asked, pausing in his exit preparations. To pretend this was anything other than what it was? To shake hands and act like nothing happened? No, Whoopi. Some bridges are meant to be burned. Joy, perhaps realizing that Harry's dramatic exit would make her look terrible, made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Harry, you're overreacting. This is just how television works. If you can't handle it, Harry turned back to face her one final time, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries of royal authority. Joy, I've handled more in my 39 years than you have in your entire career. I've served my country in war, I've lost my mother to your industry, I've rebuilt my life from nothing, and I've protected my family from people exactly like you. Don't you dare tell me I can't handle anything. The microphone clattered to the floor as Harry dropped it and walked toward the exit. But just before he reached the edge of the set, he turned back one final time. You know what the saddest part about all of this is, he said, addressing the stunned panel and the silent audience. I actually had hope when I came here today. Hope that we could have a real conversation about things that matter. Instead, I got reminded why I left this whole toxic circus behind in the first place. With that, Prince Harry walked off the View set, leaving behind 5 speechless hosts, a stunned studio audience, and what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about television moments in history. The cameras continued rolling for several more seconds, capturing the shell-shocked expressions of the panelists before finally cutting to commercial. Joy Behar, for perhaps the first time in her career, sat in complete silence, the weight of what had just happened slowly sinking in. The prince was gone, but the consequences of their confrontation were just beginning.